Okay, now let's talk about the shutter speed. The shutter speed is like a door. Okay, so when you open the door, the slower you open it, the more light enters the camera. The faster you shut the door, the less light enters. So the faster you go, the less light. The slower you go, the more light enters. Just like this. Right now, this is my shutter speed. My shutter speed is at 1/4000th. That's why you have a dark sky in the sun and during the daytime. So I'm going to slow it down. Right now it's at 3200. Right now it's 2500. Right now it's at 2000, 1600, 2500. 1250, 1000. The shutter speed is at 1000. 1/1000. Shutter speed is at 1/800th. Right now it's at 1/640th. 1/500. 1/400. So it's going slower. 1/320. As you can see, even the speed right here is fast, but the sun, you see how bright the sky is? It's still too slow for the sky shot. But anyway, so it's 1/320th, 1/250th, 1/200th, 1/160th, 1/125th, 1/100th, 1/80th, 1/60th, 1/50th, 1/40th, 1/30th. Now, as you can see, this allows plenty of light. There's no way you set this speed outside at all. So I'm going to make it faster. 1/40th, 50th, 60th, 80th, 1/100th, 1/25. So your typical shot outside is going to be, I would say, 1/160th at least. But you want to go a little bit faster if it's bright. Now we'll go out 1/200th or 2/50th, about right there. That's if you're not going to use flash. If you use flash, you can't. You can't go too fast because then it'll get dark. So anyway, here you have 1/320th, 1/400th, 1/500th, 1/640th, 1/800th, 1/1000, 1/1250, 1600th, 1/2000. It just says 2000 though. I just put in the 1 over it. And 1/2500, 1/3200, and 1/4000th. So as you can see, right now I have the ISO at 100, and I have the speed at 4000. So what you try to do, you try to balance the shot. So what I did right here, let's say I put it at 1/4000th of the shutter speed, and then I put the ISO at 100, right? But just to show you what the balance, how it works. Let's say I wanted to make it brighter, right? But I wanted to keep the speed. So what I do, I could either move up the ISO, which is going to get grainier the higher I go, right? Like this. This is the ISO. That's 200, and there's 400. ISO 400. Again, you don't want to go high ISO because you'd start losing the quality. But if you were in a church and and they don't let you use flash, you have to bump up the ISO maybe 1600, 3200, and you have to have a very good camera to do that, to maintain some kind of quality. Anyway, so this is ISO 800, ISO 1600, ISO 3200, ISO 6400. Okay, now that settles that. So I'm gonna I'm going to do now is talk about the aperture. I'm going to bring down the ISO to the 100. There we go, 100. But the speed, the shutter speed is still high. The shutter speed is at 4,000. And the ISO is at 100. 100 ISO is the best quality and the darkest, as you can see. And I'm matching that with a high shutter speed in order to keep the color dark because it's bright outside. But now we're gonna mix in the aperture. The aperture is like reflects something like the iris, that like, you know, it closes in and opens up like the iris. The aperture right now is a 5.6. What I'm going to do, I'm going to make it the higher you go with the aperture, the darker it gets. As you'll see, this is 5.6. I'm just going to mess with the aperture. The speed is 4,000 and shutter speed, and the ISO is 100. Now the aperture is 5.6. I'm going to make it faster, so it should be getting darker. 6.3, 7.1, 8.0, 9.0, 10.0, 11.0, 13.0, 14.0, 16.0, 18, 20, 22, 25, 29, 32, 36. That's the highest aperture. So that closed it down. Alright? So the higher the number on the aperture, the darker it gets. The lower the aperture, the more light comes in. The aperture is going to bring back 32, 29, 25, 20, 30, 22, 22, 18, 16, 14, 13, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 1, 6.3, 5.6. 5.6. So what I want to do now, let's say I move the aperture all the way dark. Let's move it dark. 9.0, 10.0, 11, 13, 14. Now what I could do, I could slow down the shutter speed to balance it out, to bring the picture back. So I'm going to mess with the shutter speed now. I'm going to slow down the shutter speed. 3200, 2500, 2000. I'm slowing it down. 1600, 1250, 1000, 800, 640, 500, 400. That'd be about right there. That'd be right there. That's what you could use. You could put the ISO at 100, which is the highest. You could have a high shutter speed at 320, and then you could have the aperture of 14 in this case. So, in other words, it's just a combination of aperture, ISO, and the shutter speed in order to balance the picture. Let's say I wanted to make it brighter. Let's say the aperture will open it up. So right now it's at 14. There's 13, 11, 10, 8, 7.1, 6.3. And okay, I have a 6.3 aperture. I have ISO 100, and the speed is at 320. So if I think that's too bright, I could decide what I want to do. I either make it fast shutter speed, or make it darker with the aperture by closing it down. Again, the shutter speed, I'll make it faster in order to make it darker. Shutter speed 400, 500, 640, 800, 1000, 1250, and 1600. So you get the idea now. I'm going to make it darker also by closing down the aperture. 6.3 right now, 7.1, 8.0, 9.0, 10.0. And let's just say I'm crazy. I say, oh, I want to raise up the ISO instead. So I just get the ISO, and there it is. I bump up the ISO 200, 400, 800. So what you're doing, and I'm at 1600 ISO. So taking a picture is basically about balancing the three settings: the aperture, the shutter speed, and the ISO. And each setting has a consequence with it, and that is the ISO, which is the higher you go, it gets brighter, but at the same time, it gets grainier. That's the ISO. So it goes from 100 being the best and the darkest to going higher and getting grainier and brighter at the same time. Or you could go with a shutter speed. The faster you go, the less light, the darker it gets. The slower you go, the more light enters. And then it has another consequence with the shutter speed. The shutter speed has to be determined. The shutter speed has to be determined by the activity or the action. So if it's there's a lot of action taking place, you should go high shutter speed in order to keep up with the action. Otherwise, the picture will blur. So that's the other consequence. There's two things that happen with the shutter speed. The shutter speed has to match the speed of the activity. It has to be faster than the activity in order so that it doesn't blur the picture. So let's say you're taking a picture of a hummingbird. You need a high shutter speed like 300 or 500, because the hummingbird is moving extremely fast, and if you want a crisp picture, you have to raise up the shutter speed. So the faster the action, the faster the shutter speed. So when, let's say you're taking a picture of a hummingbird, let's say a football game, okay, and you need you want crisp pictures, right? So you know that, okay, I'm gonna raise up the shutter speed right now I'm lowered down to 640, but it's bright. I say, okay, so you got to balance it out doing something else besides the shutter speed. You got to open up the aperture. So you have a 640 shutter speed. So you figure, okay, I'm gonna bring down the ISO then. The ISO. Bring down the ISO to 200, 100. Okay, that might do it. So right there, you have 640 shutter speed. You have a highest quality ISO. So the shutter speed is 640. That will cover the speed and the action taking place. And the aperture is at 10. There's plenty of room to keep a clear picture. And the color will be pretty much right and set in place. Now, let's talk about the aperture now. We know that the higher the aperture, the higher the number of the aperture, the darker it gets, like right here. The aperture is at 10.